The answer in Noevir BioEssentials, what we have here is a full spectrum micronutrient dietary supplement, plus some other goodies. Okay, we've got, yeah, I like that, woo, I can't get the woo going here. Comprehensive vitamin profile at optimal, not minimal levels. So we're shooting for I mean, we can't hit, obviously, everybody. Like I said, you know, we don't have that many NFL players in the Noevir distribution line, but feel free to go out and recruit them, especially the guys who got cut and need an income. And that'll be about almost half of them over the next 3 weeks. We have active vitamin cofactors. So when you eat a vitamin, for the most part, your body then has to activate it. So the less healthy you are, or it could also be the older you are, because your body does start to run down, although, you know, we hate to admit that, that your body needs to activate these. So we give you some of the Bs are activated already to make it quicker working in your body. And they're balanced. What I mean by that is sometimes you go to the drugstore and you'll see B25 or B50 or B100, and it's got all the B vitamins at 100 milligrams. Well, that's not the way they work in the body. You need more of some than others. So we balance it out so the ones you need more of, you get more of, and the ones you don't need as much of, you don't get as much. And it's sustained release to mimic what happens in foods. When you eat a vitamin, when you eat a meal, a good healthy meal of vegetables and fruits and organic meats or whatever, the nutrients are released slowly. So your body, it's like if I had 10 tennis balls and I went up to one of you and I said, all right, catch. You know, first thing you do like that, and maybe you'll grab one of them. But if I just pitch them to you one at a time, like a sustained release, you're going to have a good shot of catching all 10. So the sustained release helps to ensure bioavailability being the maximum you can get. Now, that's a real, I want to mention this for a second. There's other people out there that have something, say that's a powder that fizzes and you could drink it, or they have a liquid vitamin, and they say, look, it's already a liquid. Well, that's not the way our bodies work. My simple response to that is, what did you have for breakfast? This morning I had poached eggs and berries. Right? None of those were in a blender. The guy brought them to my room, it was in a cup, 2 cups. And your body has all it needs to have to rip stuff apart with the enzymes and to digest it. Okay, you don't need it to be a liquid. Your intestine's not a cheesecloth that things just go flying through. If that was the case, we'd all be dead because there's all kinds of things inadvertently that come in. Your intestine is a wall, and it has active components. It has certain transporters for vitamin B1, certain transporters for vitamin B2, certain transporters for vitamin B6, for magnesium, and so on and so forth. So each vitamin and each mineral has its own transport system in the body. Things don't just go flowing through there. So by sustained releasing it, we offer much more bioavailability. There we go. We have additional vitamin D. Vitamin D, if vitamin D were patentable, every doc would be writing scripts for it right now. But it's not, because it's already been out there for a gazillion years and from the sunshine. But if you're not out, and plus with the topical sunscreens, you know, I tell my daughter, the oldest one who has the 2 grandkids, you know, before you butter them up, let them go play outside for a while. Let them get some vitamin D. You know, they're fair-skinned, and they can use it, and it does. It helps eczema and things like that. But most people don't think like that. They butter up, or they don't live in climates where it's like it is out here, where you go outside in the pool in 20 minutes, you got all the vitamin D you'll ever need for that day or so. So 80% of the U.S. are deficient in vitamin D. That's been shown at Boston University by Dr. Michael Hollick and some other folks now. It's needed not only for, everybody knows vitamin D for bones, vitamin D for rickets, which is a bone disease. What they now have studied is vitamin D is critical for immune health. It's critical for blood sugar balance, for brain development. And our brains, now we've showed that neurons can keep growing, not as rapidly for, say, me versus my grandsons, but they can keep growing. And neuronal function for them to work, and a lot more and more research is coming out in vitamin D. What you typically find in the research community is once there's a few leading edge guys. There's the guys who are going to go out there and they're going to break trail, which is hard. And then there's the people who are going to follow on, and then there's the people that say, well, it looks safe to me, let's go after it. And that's what you're getting now with vitamin D research. They're finding that it helps to keep platelets from sticking together. It's got a host of activities. A unique form of vitamin B12, methylcobalamin. Why don't other companies use methylcobalamin? They could get it if they want it. It's expensive. Methylcobalamin is like $21,000 a kilogram. And it's not that easy to work with either. It has greater biological activity. That is one of the ways that what your body does to it. It methylates it, and that helps to reduce homocysteine levels. There was a great article in the October 14th issue of the New York Times 3 years ago, where they had Mount Sinai and Cleveland Clinic, two high-powered research medical places, neither of which is all that high on vitamins and minerals. But there were a couple of researchers there that basically showed we don't get enough vitamin B12. As we get older, it gets much more difficult to absorb and metabolize, and it's not that stable in the tablet in most cases, too. So they really got on the B12 bandwagon. And in the old days, I can remember my mom and my aunts and stuff, where they'd get a vitamin B12 shot. Docs used to do that back in the old days. I don't know how prevalent it is now, but it's additional folic acid. Folic acid turns out, folic acid, low consumption of this critical vitamin is prevalent in the United States. If you don't have enough folic acid, what happens to your DNA is the same as happens to your DNA if you get exposed to radiation, which is really scary when you stop and think about that. And folic acid, you only need a few hundred micrograms anyway. The average American gets about 220 micrograms a day. The RDA is 400 mics. Most leading researchers think the RDA probably should be about twice that. So we added some extra one, and it's crucial for DNA protection. Comprehensive mineral profile. Many of them are patented chelated minerals, minerals are somewhat difficult to absorb because, once again, in the old days, we used to eat a ton of them, so we didn't need to absorb them very efficiently. Now we don't get that much because we don't need as much in vegetables, so we need to absorb them more efficiently. So we have a patented one. These are amino acid chelates. In the body, it's like a Trojan horse. The body sees the amino acids. Inside the amino acids is trapped the mineral, and your body absorbs the amino acids, and then the mineral, which is the warriors from Troy, they sneak out and then go to work in your body. They've done a lot of studies on this, bioavailability studies. In other words, there's absorption, which is basically, absorption is I give you a check for $10,000. You've just absorbed $10,000. Bioavailability is how much of that do you keep. You know, Washington, D.C. says, give me 9. No, Washington, D.C. is, you got 10, give me 11. So that's bioavailability of these is I give you 10 and you get to keep 8. Because you always give something back. Which you'll notice a lot of times if you take the BioEssentials or InnerCare Foundation and you notice that when you urinate, it's a golden yellow. That's the B2. You're giving some B2 back. We have optimal levels and safe levels for daily consumption. We have a little bit more zinc because of the need and the fact that it's very safe and we need it more for immunity, DNA protection, digestion, lean body mass. Zinc is great for athletes or anybody who's into a fitness regimen, and reproduction. There's more zinc found in prostatic fluid than any other fluid in the male body. A word or two about antioxidants. Antioxidants scavenge deleterious. I was in a very good mood when I wrote that. Free radicals. And free radicals are highly reactive compounds that can easily damage vital molecules, tissues, and organs in the body if left unchecked. Your body has a host of ways of dealing with free radicals. Almost every one of them relies on nutrition, either to trigger it, like I said about the NRF2, or to build up the things. Free radicals are generated by a poor diet, high in sugar and high in saturated fats, low in fruits, low in vegetables. Smoking, forget about it. Smoking, there's no good that smoking does for you unless you happen to have stock in a tobacco company. Pollution. Pollution generates free radicals like crazy. I can remember back in the old days going to Los Angeles and when the smog wasn't anywhere near as well controlled, and you'd have the sunlight, the UV radiation, which we'll talk about more tomorrow or this afternoon, and then the pollution. And I'm thinking, as a chemist, I'm thinking of the reactions that are occurring on my skin. And then I started thinking of the reactions that might be occurring in my lung tissue from breathing this stuff in. And it's a little bit scary what pollution could do to you. Or I live in New Jersey, I drive over to New York to go to a play or go to a game or something, and you're sitting in the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel, and you could see the air. You're not supposed to see air unless you have some mystical quality to you. So that's radiation. Radiation could be in the form of sunlight, nuclear radiation, electromagnetic radiation, if you live near those high tension wires and so on, can all cause free radicals. As I mentioned, we have a lot of ways to protect against them, and there are several different kinds of free radicals, so you need several different kinds. There's no one magical antioxidant. You know, the multi-level industry is great for saying, this is it. This fruit from the Himalayas or from South America or wherever is the one that's going to keep you from ever aging because it's a free radical scavenger, it's an antioxidant. There are several hundred different kinds of free radicals, different types of tissues that they exist in. Are they fat soluble, or are they water soluble, or partially soluble in each? Where in the body are they? If they're in the brain, it's tough because you have a blood-brain barrier that only certain things can get across there, which is a good thing. So the analogy is to win a war, and I don't want to be like militaristic here, but just it's a good analogy. It's either that or football, and I figured the war might be more universal gender-wise. You need the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the CIA, the satellites, the drones, the whole thing. That's why we have multiple antioxidants in BioEssentials. They reduce, what they've shown is antioxidants can reduce inflammation, including joint pain, elevated blood lipids, in other words, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, neoplasms, neurological disorders, sarcopenia, which most people haven't heard that word. That's loss of lean body mass, which occurs with aging. And, you know, when you get weaker because you get older, a lot of that's just loss of lean body mass due to free radical. Just participating in old man's athletic contests and not throwing as far or lifting as much as I used to back in the day. I try to study this and find out that some researchers over in the UK that have studied us old guys found out that we have about 4 times the amount of inflammation in our body than these, you know, punk 20-year-olds. And that breaks you down. So what you want to do is you want to help fight that as much as you can. Diabetic complications, mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are responsible for a lot of aspects of degenerative diseases. They are your cellular powerhouse. They make the money that makes your body run. They make the energy that makes your body run in every tissue, in every cell. Or that tissue is better. And DNA damage. They did an interesting study in Belgium, I think it was, where they looked at DNA breakdown through urinary means. And then they gave these were smokers, so they had a high level of breakdown. Then they gave one group, they had to eat Brussels sprouts, one serving, which is 100 grams, a quarter of a pound of Brussels sprouts every day for 30 days or 60 days, I don't remember which. And the people who ate the Brussels sprouts had half the DNA damage than the people who didn't eat the Brussels sprouts. And Brussels sprouts are very similar to broccoli in terms of their chemical composition. The phytonutrients we have are plant-derived or bioidentical mimetics. In other words, they're exactly the same. Quercetin, it's one of the most potent bioflavonoids. And not all bioflavonoids are antioxidants. Some bioflavonoids can be pro-oxidants because bioflavonoids in plants in many cases are there to protect the plants from insects. When the insect eats it, these flavonoids generate free radicals and kill the bug or make it sick. So then the bug says, nah, I'm not going to eat that anymore. It's abundant in vegetables and greens, and it's very protective via antioxidant activity, and it also activates that NRF1. Lycopene, which is found primarily in tomatoes. So tomato sauce is the way my mother and grandmother and aunts used to make, where they put olive oil in with the tomatoes, because lycopene is water soluble or oil soluble, so the olive oil put it out. And they did a lot of the studies on Italians, because they ate so much tomato sauce, and found that they had a lower incidence of prostate problems because of the amount of lycopene that they ate. But it's also very powerful and healthy for the cardiovascular system. Cocoa seeds, I don't think we'd have any problem handing anybody cocoa, but if you've ever tasted like baker's chocolate is a better example of real chocolate than, you know, say the little Kisses are, or you know, the different bars that are out there. And it's very healthy for cardiovascular health, and it's a very strong anti-inflammatory. Green tea extract. The way they found this out is basically looking at the lower incidence of certain cancers in Asia, where folks drink a couple cups of green tea a day or more, compared to the United States, where we never drank green tea until we did those studies. It's amazingly helpful. It increases energy. There's studies showing that just green tea by itself will help increase your rest, not the caffeine associated with it, because coffee didn't do it, will help increase your resting basal metabolic rate. Great for cardiovascular health, phenomenal DNA protector. And when I say DNA protector, depending upon the tissue in your body, every so often your DNA is going to divide and turn into two cells. And when it does, it's very exposed. You want it protected so that it makes you and not something kind of like you next time. Curcumin extract, this primarily comes from India. So we've got basically a global approach here. We've got Western Europe, India, good old US of A, China, Japan. Curcumin is clinically studied. This is a patented. Curcumin is one of these things that it's great in vitro. In other words, in the test tube or petri dish. So it's phenomenal in practice, but when you put it in a game, it doesn't seem to work. And the reason why is your body doesn't absorb curcumin very well at all. Curcumin is typically used as a spice. And almost all the spices used in ancient cultures are very good for you. Garlic and oregano and things like that, rosemary. Curcumin, so what this is actually made by an Italian pharmaceutical company, is they bond it to phosphatidylcholine, which is also good for you, to show, and it gets absorbed better. And they did clinical studies showing it was a very strong anti-inflammatory. They're doing a study now in Spain with athletes showing that it increases recovery from athletics. Curcumin is antiviral in many cases and a very strong anti-inflammatory and protects your DNA and good for your immunity. Broccoli seed extract, I mentioned before. It's also good for hormonal balance for both men and women. Taro still bean. This is, if you go to taropure.com, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff on taro still bean. It's a more powerful analog of resveratrol. Resveratrol got a lot of press, and I had a lot to do with getting resveratrol into this country because it's commonly found in a Chinese herb. Well, it turns out after they did more, and I actually met the gentleman who sold his company for a mere $720 million, who did the resveratrol work that was published in the New York Times, showing that it helped fat rats live as long as skinny rats. And that's great if you have rats. And the trouble is, the amount of resveratrol that they use would be equivalent, I can't remember how many bottles of wine you'd have to drink every day, but it was at least in double digits, which might have an effect on your liver otherwise. So, I look at things real practical and say, all right, other than, we're not trying to cure something here. We're just trying to keep you healthy for a longer period of time and make you a little bit healthier day by day, is how much resveratrol could you have gotten back in the day from a Burgundy or a Bordeaux, because resveratrol is a response by the grape to stress. In this case, it's fungal stress. But now we're so anal about microbes and fungus and stuff like that. We clean everything so much that the grapes don't contain as much resveratrol as they used to. And at the most, if you drank a liter of wine, you might get about 25 milligrams of resveratrol. In order for resveratrol to really work, you need about a couple of grams because it gets in your body and goes right out again. Your liver sees it and says, oh, resveratrol, put something else on it, and you excrete it before it has a chance to get systemic. Taro still bean is just like resveratrol with a slight modification. It's found primarily in blueberries, which are incredibly healthy fruit. And it stays in your body a lot longer, and it has some very good cardiovascular and immune benefits. Lipoic acid is probably one of the strongest antioxidants known to mankind across the blood-brain barrier, so it could protect everything here. It's part of an energy cycle as well, and it supports healthy blood sugar. If you were a diabetic in Germany or Italy or France, more than likely your doctor would give you lipoic acid to help control your blood sugar. And it doesn't have any side effects. N-acetylcysteine is also a powerful antioxidant by itself, and it helps the body. It's a component of glutathione, and what they've shown in studies up at Stanford is that if you give N-acetylcysteine to people, they gave it to HIV patients who are depleted in glutathione, it increases your glutathione levels in the body, which is a very good thing to do from an anti-aging standpoint and a liver health standpoint. Probiotics. This is funny because when I saw this probiotic, you don't find that many probiotic comics. They're not easy to come by. It says friendly bacteria, special offer, buy 4,732,000, blah, 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 get one free. Because with probiotics, as I mentioned before, you have 400 trillion. That's actually one of the things that's higher than our national debt right now. Not a lot higher, and we're getting there. Keep this administration there. We'll get there. Trillion is a really hard word for Americans or people in general to grasp. It's so much more than a billion. And a billion is so much more than a million. And I can't remember, the Wall Street Journal had a great article that said if you had $1 million and you spent $1,000 a day, you know, I don't know, 10 years, or I could be wrong, but you'll be back to zero. If you had $1 billion and you and your kids and their kids and their kids and their kids spent $1,000 a day, they finally make it to nothing. A trillion, forget about it. You'd be spending from now till the cows come home. I can't figure out what I'd buy if I had $1 trillion, but I'd buy a lot of it. The probiotics are live microorganisms which, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit to the host. They're bacteria. They're bugs, as I like to call them. And there's good bugs, bugs that we're not sure about, and there's bugs that we definitely know you don't want. Things like Shigella and Salmonella and Listeria, Klebsiella, and things of that nature. And they all live, right, in here, not just in me, but in you too. And what happens is, well, I don't want to get too far. So there's 400 trillion, it's 10 times the cells. And, oh yeah, one of I use the word cultures because there's sometimes the bugs are called cultures too, but by culture I meant societies, consume forms of probiotics regularly in their diet, like fermented products. Probiotics produce lactic acid typically. So when your yogurt tastes really sweet, it probably doesn't have very powerful probiotics in it. If your yogurt, acids all taste sour. If your yogurts taste sour, it's probably got some representative number of bugs in it. Now these bugs, you need to take them on a regular basis. It's not like some people might be thinking, wow, there's 2.5 billion of these little suckers in its tablets. How do I keep from taking too many? You don't, because they slough off every time you have a bowel movement. That's one of the ways they test your probiotic population, is just to look at fecal samples. That's where you have grad students to go collect those. And that's really the only way your doctor's going to do it, is to test that. He might not, but the lab will. What they do is there's a lot of ways that they work. They compete with unhealthy bugs simply for space. So if you keep throwing the healthy bugs in there, eventually they're going to overpopulate the unhealthy bugs. They produce a variety of healthy bioactives. Some of them make vitamins, and it's making right in your intestines, in your colon actually. And so they get absorbed like that. They make short-chain fatty acids, which sound kind of scary maybe, but they're fuel that you couldn't eat, like vinegar. They're fuel for your mitochondria. And they're also anti-carcinogenic as well. Butyrates are one of the ones that are anti-carcinogenic. They normalize GI function. They're not going to make you go to the bathroom right away, but they'll help over time have you have a healthy amount. You take these with BioCleanse, it would be a real good thing to do. They help maintain GI integrity. A lot of you may have heard of leaky gut syndrome because of our diet and lifestyle and drugs. A lot of times you have a leaky gut and you have large molecules go in there which wreck your immunity. Your immune system sees this large protein in there, it attacks it, and it's fighting it all the time, and you generate all this inflammation unnecessarily. Control antibiotic-associated diarrhea. We have a tendency, and it's not just the medical community, but it's also the moms and dads, or yourselves, is you go to the doctor and you got the flu. An antibiotic isn't going to do it. The flu is a virus. Antibiotic is bacteria, works on bacteria. But you want something. So you want that Z-Pack, because it sounds cool. The pharmaceutical industry, by the way, knows that Z's sound cool. So you'll find that Z's are prevalent in drugs much more than they are in the English language, per word kind of a thing. They did studies and paid ad agencies millions of dollars to find these things out. The antibiotics kill the bugs indiscriminately for the most part, and that live in your gut. So what happens, a woman might notice it is after taking a couple of courses of antibiotics, say over the course of a season, that they'll get yeast infections because the yeast will overgrow because the bugs can't help control that. Now men get yeast infections too because it starts in the colon. It doesn't start in the vagina, all right? So it starts in the colon. We don't notice it, but it affects you. These microorganisms, the Candida albicans yeast, does secrete chemicals that make you feel like you're hungover to some extent, and which is not a comfortable feeling to have day in and day out, especially knowing that you can't even recollect back on the night before you were out with your friends or your buddies having a good time. That might be worth it. This is not. And then the yeast grow because of the high sugar in our diets and so on. So we need to add more bugs to it. They're becoming much more popular right now than they've ever been before. This whole category is getting medical interest. You're starting to see some major companies like Procter & Gamble and Amerifit with bugs that are out there. The challenge is making the probiotics to keep them alive. These bugs are very sensitive. Oxygen, moisture, heat can kill them. But it kills them in the tablet by making them grow, and then there's no food for them, and then they starve to death. So we have addressed that with the use of something called lactospore. This is a patented spore-forming probiotic that protects the bug during storage and during tableting. And so the bugs, we put in twice as much to begin with that we have on the label, and then they're protected from the environment because they have a spore around them. And at about 30 degrees Celsius, or close to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, they'll start to come out. The spore will melt down, the bugs will come out to play, and everything gets activated, which is typically once it's in your body. And it takes a little time for it to do it, so by the time it gets through your stomach. And these have been tested in humans as well as animals to work. It's high potency. It's 2.5 billion, CFU stands for colony-forming units per dose. Sometimes you see stuff, and this is what I said before about numbers. And Washington's kind of funny because they know this, that we trillion, billion, it's just a lot of money, you know. And some companies will have 100 million. You think, wow, 100 million, that's pretty cool. That's a lot of bugs. But 2.5 billion is somewhere between the range of 1 to 10 billion a day seems to be kind of a therapeutic dose of these. So we have 2.5 billion. We put in almost double that to make sure that these 2.5 billion will be alive in 2 years under normal conditions. If you decide to stick it in, you know, in your car's air cleaner, it's a whole different story. Usage, it's formulated to be used safely and effectively on a daily basis. You can't squeeze this much powerful nutrition into one tablet. You just can't. Everybody wants, I want one. You can't. It's just not possible. Take 2 tablets twice daily with breakfast and dinner. I have a tendency, I could take anything, anytime, and it doesn't bother me. Some people, they take vitamins on an empty stomach, and it makes them feel a little nauseous. So that's one of the reasons. And vitamins work with food. They don't work typically on their own. They work with food. So it's best to take them with a meal or right after a meal. It's formulated, manufactured, and packaged at an NSF-approved and FDA GMP facility in the good old US of A, assuring you the highest quality of dietary supplements. What I should do one of these days is give you either a video clip, if we ever put one together. We keep threatening to do that at the company, or a series of slide presentations showing the facility. Some of the Noevir people have been there, and it's a great-looking facility. It runs like a top in terms of where the products are manufactured. Our laboratories are equivalent to what you'd find in a pharmaceutical company, millions of dollars literally worth of test equipment to make sure that what we're buying is in fact what it says it is, and after we make it, that everybody did their job all along the way, so what's in the tablet or what's on the label in fact is in the tablet, and that's very important. You're going to find in a couple of years, one of the good things that the FDA is doing is they're inspecting all the plants. And that takes time, that make vitamins, because we'll find that some people might say, hey, I could do the same thing that you got, but I'll do it for half the price. Well, you can't get something for nothing. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. So you want to make sure, and it costs a lot of money to run a plant like that. We have, I don't know, 300,000 square feet of manufacturing laboratory and office space, most of it manufacturing. And we've got a lot of quality people that we never had before, the way the industry used to be run. So you're going to find that you're going to be very competitive when you're actually comparing apples to apples price-wise on this. Summary, in today's I Want It Now society, we often forget that the importance of investing in our future health. The vitamins aren't going to, if you're not feeling well, the vitamins aren't going to make you feel instantly well. For some people, they might. You know, the placebo effect is strong too. But and usually the people who are worse off notice the benefits quicker. So if somebody's anemic or somebody eats crappy and all of a sudden they start taking the vitamins, they might notice more energy, better sleep, better moods. Well, these are all, vitamins are involved in everything in that regard. So, but it's an investment in your future. It's like your arteries don't clog up overnight. They're not going to unclog overnight, but you can help keep them from doing that with the right nutrition and exercise and lifestyle, relatively stress, because you have stress-free lifestyle because you're all Noevir distributors. So there's no stress involved in that. And it's an investment in your future health. And that's, to my mind, one of the best investments you can make. And this is the type of thing that you can assure you're going to get a strong return on your investment. It goes far beyond a typical multivitamin mineral, because one of the things people say, well, I can go to go get a Walmart vitamin for, $9 or something like that. And it's not the same. It's not the same in the quality of the vitamins that are in there, the quality of the minerals that are in there. Are you going to absorb all of them? Is it sustained release? No, it's not. Theirs isn't, that is. Does it have the cofactors? No, it doesn't. Does it have the phytonutrients? No, it doesn't. Does it have the phytonutrients that are standardized to the active ingredients to make sure, if anybody has a garden here, you know that, one year it rains a lot and the broccoli looks a little different. The strawberries, look a little different. Next year you have a little bit of a drought and they look different. Same thing with herbs. Is you want to make sure, and the way we do that is we just make sure that every batch has the same amount of a marker compound or an active ingredient as the last batch, so that July's delivery is going to be just the same as September's, is going to be the same as February's, and so on in terms of potency. The addition of the critical phytonutrients, we want to simulate a good diet as much as we can without just making you go to the store, walk down the produce aisle and fill up your baskets and go home and cook it and eat it, kind of a thing. It supports the entire Noevir product line. It turbocharges everything else. The way we designed the line in the beginning, the way I designed the line in the beginning, was that in those days Foundation, now BioEssentials, is the key. It's the linchpin. Everything will work better when you take BioEssentials. And we did it that way for a reason, so we don't have to keep adding too many other things to everything else and dilute their efficacy and also have the chance of maybe you're taking too much of anything. So safety first, effectiveness is a very close second. This is the core of a healthy daily nutritional program for everyone, every day, and basically it's an investment in yourself, and it's a great thing to do for other people as well. And with that, I'll open the floor to questions. Thank you very much. Rachel. No questions? All right, everybody go to lunch. No, just kidding.
I have one. My name is Mary Lou Foss. I'm from Springfield, Missouri. Oh, thank you. On having the BioCleanse with the probiotics as well as this in there, is that too much if you're taking both, or is that?
No,
okay.
That's a good question. It's not too much. They're now giving, in Italy and in Belgium, where they're doing a lot of research on this, in some cases they're giving over 1 trillion a day to people. So it's definitely not too much. It's really hard to get too much bugs. Your body just gives them away. Another question?
Just real quick, would you give what about the dangers of synthetic vitamins?
Okay.
This I've really been stressing.
There are no dangers in synthetic vitamins. The vitamins are bioidentical. There are almost no vitamins that come from natural sources, because the economic facts of life are, if I'm a farmer in Salinas, California, and I'm growing plants that are loaded with vitamins, I'm going to sell the plant. I'm not going to break the plant down and pull out the vitamins and throw the rest of the stuff away. There's very, very, very few vitamins that are, vitamin E comes from soy, so that's natural. Beta-carotene comes from algae. But the vitamins, the chemical structure of the vitamins have been well known for well over 100 years. And they're made under incredibly strict, anything we eat, anything we use in our facility is screened by, first of all, before we could even buy it. It's like when these athletes say, well, I must have gotten this from my vitamin. No, you didn't. We can't get those synthetic steroids and things like that. If we could, I'd be a lot bigger. But there's a little more humor there. So they're bioidentical in every case.
I meant the synthetic vitamins that are in discounted vitamins.
No, we all have to play by the same rules. Now, whether the company actually, there's some pharmaceutical grade material, there's NF Codex material, there's food grade material, which is the least, that we have to use at least food grade or better. Then there's feed grade, which is what you give to your cows and pigs and dogs and stuff like that. And but we use food grade and above, and we always use the highest grade whenever it's available. I can't vouch for, what other people do, but that's what they're supposed to do as well.
Jan, I know that in the BioLite, there's a little bit of caffeine. I'm assuming there's not any caffeine in the BioEssentials.
No, there's not. No.
Dr. DeBenedetto, would you talk about chelate and what the importance of that is to our formulations, please?
Sure. I mentioned it briefly. There was no clock here, so I wasn't sure what the timing was. But now I am, and I'm over. But the chelates, basically what we do is we bond two amino acids, which are breakdown products of protein. That's what your body has to use. That's what your body has to break protein down in order to use it. In most cases, it's glycine, which is a small, very safe amino acid. We bond it to the mineral. And then when you swallow that, your body sees the amino acids and it absorbs it. A lot of people, as you get older and your digestion gets compromised, for instance, or you're taking antacids, so you're not able to break down the carbonates and the sulfates and so on as well. The chelates get absorbed much more readily and more completely than the mineral salts do. And these have been shown in animal and human studies. It's actually kind of funny is they were adapted by veterinarians before people would want to put them into human supplements because they cost more money. And people just figure, well, if I get my pig bigger sooner, I could sell them, and it'll be or chickens. Chickens are great, I guess, for that too. If they could turn over more chickens a year, and so they use the chelates a lot because they're healthier in that regard.
Hi. Why 1,600% of the B12? I don't know if you mentioned it earlier. I came in a little late.
Because your body, A, the B12 is not that stable, and B, the body doesn't absorb it real well, and C, the doctors at Cleveland Clinic and Mount Sinai Hospital, who basically hate vitamins. I shouldn't say hate vitamins, but they're not big fans in terms of that. Will, in fact, they have in fact recommended a high level of B needs to be given in order to get what you need. Plus, the RDA is nowhere near what you need. And I think that's it for now. I'll be around, so you could bug me. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. So no medical questions in that regard. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your interest. Look forward to seeing you in another hour.